This is my Renaissance in Key Ideas and Thinkers presentation for my final in Introduction to Design. So with this final, I have done the purpose being students will learn about the Renaissance and identify key points and figures of the time. So my learners are specifically 7th grade students in a general education classroom in middle school social studies. There are 26 learners in this specific class period that I'm focusing on. And this will be blended in person. So the class will be split into partners and assignments as well as individuals for their note-taking and graphic organizers and then diagrams, with some collaboration within those assignments as well. So my learning gap and problem that I've identified are specifically one student, which we'll discuss later, staying on task and other students being a distraction. So specifically barriers that go along with this are that it is a middle school classroom to begin with. So sometimes students have more behaviors that affect other students. Specifically being bored with the content, feeling that it is repetitive, especially going into the third point that I have, that it feels like busy work. So being able to help push the content and being able to explain it in a way that will repetitively engage this student. So with the ADDIE framework, so I have analyzed what behaviors were occurring during the time frames that she was being distracted, and then I designed the objectives of the lesson to allow for a more distraction-free environment. Not saying that it will be completely distraction-free, but being able to take away some of those factors of the distraction and helping put that into the content-based lessons. And then I'm developing the idea of staying on task while completing work through a chart. So we're focusing on being able to break down the little things and applying them. And then implementation of knowledge throughout the lesson, so that it's important to my learner's eyes. She doesn't like busy work, so it's important to make sure she's staying engaged with the activities that I am having her do. Evaluating through the formative and the summative assessment at the end. So I have 2 formatives and a summative assessment in this learning lesson segment that I am focusing on. So Veronica is my specific learner. She's 13 and she is a 7th grader. Some of her strengths are she does really well when she's focused on work, and she does work great with peers, and she does great independently and in small collaborative settings. She does not care for whole class discussions, but she does them, but she prefers independent and small collaborative settings. She also plays volleyball and is very outgoing and outspoken. She does not like busy work. She feels that work can sometimes just be repetitive, and she can get off task easily when she is distracted. When she's in a distraction-free environment, she does very well, stays on task, stays focused, but it can be a struggle for her to stay on task if there are distractions. And she doesn't enjoy full classroom speaking, so talking out loud, doing presentations, which is something that I push for within this learning segment as a final presentation. However, it's a mini slideshow, not a full based lecture that she would have to be doing. It'd be a 2 to 3 minute presentation. So how her learning gaps and her difficulties and her strengths and weaknesses have been used when I have designed this project. So I broke assignments into either individual or partner work. This will help with the distractions, as a whole group can be more distracting than a partner, and when you're focusing on a partner or working individually, it can be easier to stay on task. When teaching, providing one-on-one support if needed, and answering or filling in assignments, so helping and guiding her if she has a question. She's had one-on-one support before in the classroom, and just being able to provide that further if she needs it. So choice in thinker and partner to receive feedback on the final presentation submission. So students will work with a partner to revise their final presentation when needed. And they will also have the choice in the Renaissance Thinker. They will be provided a list and they can choose from the list. So they do have some say in it. However, they are broken down for students' convenience. This also goes into UDL and the act of providing more choice for the student. So my learning objectives were broke into more educational standards and looking more towards a Bloom's taxonomy type. So students would choose a Renaissance thinker and develop a PowerPoint presentation that defines their thinker's impact in the Renaissance and one way they impact society today. I broke that into I can present my Renaissance thinker and their key information and their impact on modern and past society. That would be my summative assessment learning objective. And then students will be able to compare and contrast medieval ages and the Renaissance by providing 4 examples in a Venn diagram. I broke that further into I can compare and contrast the medieval ages and the Renaissance. And then that would be a formative assessment that I will have. And then my last objective is students will be able to identify humanism, classical, and realism as key ideals in the Renaissance by filling in a graphic organizer note sheet and breaking this into I can identify key ideas of the Renaissance. My assessments, so I have 2 formative and 1 summative. So my 2 formative are Venn diagram and my note sheet. So my Venn diagram is having them compare medieval and Renaissance ages, and then my guided note sheet is my introduction for the Renaissance that students will complete individually through the teacher lecturing on a slideshow. And then my summative is our final presentation where the students are researching and learning. So my instructional strategies in UDL, so I am focusing on class discussion throughout the notes taking in the note sheet, and then modeling as well if students need help with that, going around making sure students are understanding and modeling to them the expectations, and doing one of the Venn diagram bubbles, for example, providing them with a 5th example on top of their other 4 if they need it. Collaboration is a big part, so allowing students to collaborate with their partner or as a whole class if needed. And then the final presentation as a whole will help students grow as learners and present their findings and show what they have learned. And throughout this, UDL is important as it's allowing students, especially in that final presentation, to show what they've picked and how they're presenting that information, because they can present in any type of slideshow format. So what I learned, so I really liked the UDL. It's one of the most important things that we can bring into our classrooms, I feel. Also the idea that students need to be motivated and students need to be engaged with content relevant work, because we can give students work, but they might not always align with our standards and what we're wanting students to learn. It's just busy work. Something that I would do differently, I would incorporate more methods of learning, so going back into the UDL and providing more videos and context for learning, more primary sources and stuff like that. Better feedback, being able to do formative assessments where students can be given more feedback so that they know what they're doing well on, what they might need to work on, even if they are getting it right, just small things that will help improve in their growth as learners. As well as more examples of real world application, I did ask students to give a impact of modern society within their final presentation, but making sure that I'm carrying the world application throughout both my formative and summative and classroom assessments. Thank you for listening, and then I have my citation for my book.